Story 1. My dad used a weed whacker on a fire ant hill when I was a kid. He urgently yelled for me to run outside and hose him off. I forgot about that until now. I should definitely bring that up at Thanksgiving or something. Story 2. Back in middle school, I accidentally mowed over my iPod Touch first generation that had all the original games and many photos on it. I am still upset about it to this day. Story 3. I kicked up a small rock and sent it through the driver's side window of my dad's 1969 Yenko Camaro, one of 201 made that year. That car was and still is his pride and joy. I thought that was going to be my last day on earth, but he was surprisingly calm about it. Story 4. My mom's brand new flower garden. She thought all the vines growing under the bird feeder were weeds. For her next attempt, she put a border around it. Story 5. Rather large snake. There was a lot of blood, so I am guessing it was large. It makes a thump sound and shoots out red chunks. Story 6. A couple of weeks ago, I had an angry killdeer bird mother squawk and screech at me. So I stopped and saw a group of 4 babies on the ground. There was no nest, just right in the grass. I left that area untouched and finished everything else. Last week, before mowing the same area, I walked up and did not see any birds, and certainly no angry mother, so I figured they relocated somewhere safer. I finished the area and moved on to another. At the end of my first pass in this area, suddenly the killdeer mother dive-bombed me. I stopped immediately, got out, and looked around. I had just driven over one of her chicks. The other 3 were literally an inch or 2 from the tire. I felt so bad. Story 7. A My Little Pony horse figure. My daughter screamed when she saw her damaged little friend, and I had to go straight to the My Little Pony hospital, the toy shop, to replace it, help it recover. Story 8. When I was 8, I ran over the head of a garden hoe that was hidden in the grass. It flew out at 100 miles per hour and missed my father's head by inches before lodging itself into the side of the house. Needless to say, he was not impressed. Story 9. The wife's plants, which looked like weeds to me, should not be sitting in the path of my zero-turn mower. Story 10. I mowed over a metal wire that was part of a dog run. I had to remove the mower deck and take off the blades to untangle everything. The mower received new blades that day. Story 11. Last week, I mowed over a sort of hoe trowel tool. I thought it was a stick until I passed it. So it is probably time for a new blade and a new spade, knife, or hoe tool. I am glad that the 5-inch blade did not shoot back at me. That would have hurt. Story 12. I have not run over anything significant, but I have cut through the extension cord for my electric hedge trimmer twice because I did not learn my lesson the first time. Story 13. Cast iron water curb stop. Bent the mower blade into half a barrel hoop and blew the engine right off the deck. A new mower had to be acquired. Story 14. I was mowing and also burning some brush. Unfortunately, I mowed too close to the sun and ran over a small ember because I didn't see it. Of course, I was bagging, not mulching. Then, there was a massive fireball under the mower, and I panicked and flipped it over. The bag ended up with a small hole burnt in it. The mower was fine. Do not mow near fires, kids. Story 15. An entire family of rabbits. Worst one ever. I was mowing some tall brush when a family of rabbits jumped out, ran around my mower, then all jumped to their deaths into the mower exhaust. Story 16. Mowing my parents' yard as the paperboy walked up to the house for the weekly delivery. I did not see a small metal hose and sprinkler laying in the yard. It shot out from under the deck of the mower, passed between the feet of the paperboy as he walked, ricocheted off 2 walls inside the garage, and landed back in front of the paperboy. Story 17. Well, Hank, Dave, Stu, and Hank once told this tale. I'm looking over my dead dog Rover, who I hit with a power mower. One leg is missing. The other is gone. The third leg is scattered all over the lawn. No need explaining the one leg remaining. Is spinning on the carport floor. I'm looking over my dead dog Rover, who I overlooked before. Personally, I ran over a lawn sprinkler and part of the hose that had been left out all winter, and the grass had grown around them. Story 18. Everything except for living animals. So yes, dead animals. Probably the most satisfying run over is glass bottles. They make an awesome tinkling sound with all the broken glass. Diapers are not very satisfying. Used to get in trouble for running over sticks. Whatever, grandpa. Wire and wire fence are not very fun. Plastic bags and potato chip bags are super fun. Hay bale string is a very bad time. Rotten wood is super fun. Fresh wood not so much. Wrenches are fun on a riding mower, not fun behind a push mower. Hoses are never fun. Pine cones are a blast. Kitty litter, dirt, and sand are always fun. I loved finding little dirt mounds, grinding them down, and creating giant dust clouds in the neighborhood. Dog feces is terrible, but it's worse when you hit it with a weed eater. Golf balls are scary because you never expect them. Tennis balls are sad because I could have played with that. Baseballs are satisfying. Love playing with the insides. Anyway, I don't cut grass anymore. I pay someone to do it because changing blades is a pain. Story 19. Not me, but my friend. We were working for a landscaping company. He mowed over a customer's crocuses twice. In fairness, they were planted in a heavily shaded area, and it was on cloudy days. Story 20. My stepdad's rug for grilling. He was surprisingly calm about it, considering he is the kind of person to lose his temper over the smallest things. He was angrier about me mowing over one of the trees he planted because I mistook it for a weed. Story 21. Not me, but a friend hit the family box turtle because their mother decided it needed some fresh air and a stroll in the tall grass. It was not their family's pet. Let this be a life lesson and a warning. Story 22. A small raised water turnoff cover in my grandmother's yard. When I was 12, cracked off and flew while I was using the neighbor's new lawn mower. I put it back on and spent an hour trying to get the mower working again. The lawnmower's owner came over, and suddenly half the neighborhood was there trying to get it running again. They returned the lawnmower to the store where it was bought and, surprisingly, got a new one. I never asked to borrow it again. Story 23. Garbage. After 20 minutes of collecting one styrofoam cup, I never made that mistake again. I also learned later, thankfully not through experience, that I need to check for animals, specifically rabbits and turtles. Story 24. Many seedling trees, as well as a lawnmower, were damaged when I drove the riding lawnmower up a tree. Yes, up. I missed reverse and put the riding lawnmower into high speed instead. I was 8 years old and had been driving that lawnmower for years on the farm, so it was my fault. Story 25. In my youth, I lived adjacent to the nicest neighborhood in the state. At age 12, I started doing yards back before weed eaters. I used a 19-inch push mower, hand shears for trimming, and large motor-driven edgers. I maintained about 30 to 40 acres of highly cared-for yards weekly for about 10 years. I have run over everything. Everything. Live squirrel, all manner of dead animals, every toy, tool, and debris known, including my own hand. Yes, live squirrel. I was mowing under bushes, pushing in, lifting, and pulling out very fast. The squirrel jumped just as I was dropping the mower. It squirted squirrel all over the place. Story 26. Plastic cap for a plumbing cleanout. Hidden stump, goodbye crankshaft. Occasional rocks or pieces of concrete. Story 27. A friend of mine lost his debit card in his front yard and found it with the lawn mower. He had a 2-inch shard in his leg. Story 28. A chain scared me. Other than that, I have run over several ant baits and, most recently, a gardening staple. Story 29. Not me, but my wife push-mowed over her cell phone that fell out of her back pocket. It did not make it. Story 30. I mowed my neighbor's yard when I was in high school. I ran over one of their garden hoses, which sounded like a bomb went off. They gave me a $10 bill that fell out of my pocket, and I saw a snake. Story 31. I once hit a 6-foot section of 1/4-inch steel cable on the side of the road. There was no permanent damage, but it took over an hour to get it unwound. Story 32. Several snakes and a croquet wicket which slashed my right foot and impaled my left foot. That was unpleasant and frightening. Story 33. When I was 10, I accidentally mowed over the sprinkler control valves. My dad still reminds me of it laughing out loud. Story 34. Not me, but a guy in my fire department was mowing tall grass at training and ran over a young deer. He has since been known as the fawn mower. Story 35. I used to clean out foreclosed houses and do lawn care on them. Most were really nasty places. I once mowed over a strap-on device for a man. It was hollow inside for his private parts. At least I assume that was its purpose. The sad part is my girlfriend knew whose house it was. She went to school with him and added him on social media a few days later. Story 36. We live in a rural area and had a fixed wireless internet company install an antenna in the backyard. They ran an internet cable from the antenna to our house but never buried it. My wife was mowing the backyard, and you can imagine what happened. Story 37. I had an electric lawnmower when I was 15, and I mowed directly over the cord. Somehow, I made the same mistake with a weed whacker and another cord. Long story short, I only use gas-powered lawn tools now. Story 38. The chain for our dog was not chained at the time. A piece broke off and flew into the neighbor's yard, missing the elderly man by about 3 feet. I had to untangle the rest from the blade and shaft. Story 39. I hit a fist-sized rock that shot out and struck my dad in his stomach. I remember hearing him say, "I'm hit," then collapsing in pain. I still feel bad about it to this day. Story 40. Someone's hammock while I was working for a lawn mowing company as a 15 or 16-year-old kid. I did not own up to the mistake, and it has been a source of shame all these years whenever I think about it. I deeply regret not knocking on the door and offering to pay for it. I am sure this caused reputational damage to my employer as well, which worsens the feeling. But I learned my lesson. Story 41. Not exactly by accident, but a chunk of a tree stump looked rotten, and I had just chewed through a completely rotten similar chunk. I needed a new lawnmower after that one. Story 42. Frogs for sure. I came very close to going over a big black snake at my old house, about 8 feet long. It shot out from right in front of the mower and took off into the woods behind the house. Story 43. I was about 12 years old and mowing my next-door neighbor's yard for extra money. I ran over a plastic circular object with a cover that was sticking up. It was some sort of drain, maybe 5 inches in diameter. Anyway, it cost about as much as I would have earned, so I did not make any money. Story 44. My parents live on a main road, so we have a sidewalk and a street lamp on the property. The grass grew too high around the lamp, and I misjudged where the bolts that hold the lamp were, running the mower right over one of them. This is a 2-inch wide steel bolt. My push mower jumped up in the air when I hit that bolt, ripping the blade apart and damaging the engine. I received a severe reprimand that day. Story 45. A friend who is a professional disturbed a hornet's nest. He is allergic to the stings and also has poor eyesight. He flailed around and lost his glasses. He found his way to his truck and got inside, along with about 5 hornets. He managed to kill them all but could not see well enough to use his phone. He had to get back out, retrieve his glasses by feeling around, and was stung by hornets again. He made his way back to the truck, did not have an epinephrine auto-injector, and had to call his wife to bring him one. This was just one of his many adventures. Story 46. My uncle ran over his foot and cut his big toe completely off. They found the toe, but it was too mangled to reattach. Story 47. The first time I ever mowed, I ran over the power cord to the mower. I spent a lot of time stripping, soldering, and heat shrinking the break in the wire. Lesson learned. Story 48. The worst was a chipmunk. He was in the tall grass. Couldn't see it. Bugs, frogs, baseballs, a home plate for baseball, my garden hose, the plastic caps for my septic inspection pipes. I should be more careful. Story 49. Copperhead with push mower. Kept going somehow. When I was a kid, there was an old tree stump by the creek, and I think it was burrowed in there. I saw it around there several times and always hated mowing that section. Anxiety and snakes do not mix. Story 50. Mowed over the dog's leashes. Damaged the riding mower. The leashes got tangled between the 2 blades. Whoops. Story 51. Dog toy. It was a heavy ball. I don't know why we had it. She could barely hold it in her mouth because it was too big and heavy. I was mowing the yard when suddenly I heard a crash, and the ball was launched into my mom's truck fender. Caused a lot of damage. Story 52. A mouse or chipmunk? I'm not sure. It was small and rodent-like. It happened when I was a kid. I saw it pop out of the ground inches in front of the riding mower. By the time my brain could process what I saw and I took my foot off the pedal to stop, I had already heard a clunk and blood shot out the side of the mower. I felt really bad about it. My wife mowed over a bee or hornet nest. She said they were yellow and black like bees but came out of the ground, and one of them angrily stung her. It was the first time in her life she had been stung and the last time she mowed our lawn. Story 53. Comcast cable outside to the modem inside. No problem. I was able to fix it, but it took me 2 hours to figure out what caused it. Story 54. I grew up in the countryside. My father had a side job doing lawn care. I have run over snakes, beehives, wasp nests, and quite a bit of dead wildlife. Story 55. My mother's petunias resulted in my immediate dismissal as the yard maintenance person. However, in my defense, she tended to plant petunias that were no higher than the grass, so you can see why I made that mistake. Story 56. Capped polyvinyl chloride pipe in my front yard. I have no idea what it is for, but I put electrical tape over it, and it has been fine for years. Story 57. My mom's lilac bush when I was 14. She had just planted it that spring. I felt terrible and immediately called her to apologize. Fortunately, it grew back better than ever and is the largest of the 3 lilac bushes she planted. Story 58. Tennis balls mostly. However, I have also sucked up a long length of rope, which wrapped around the mower blades and stalled the engine. Story 59. Bunnies. It was awful, and I still think about it more than 20 years later. It was a commercial lawnmower, and 2 or 3 of them jumped into the blades from the next yard and were shot out the side before I realized what was happening. I feel terrible about it. Story 60. Dog poop. Rocks. I almost got a cat once. I had no idea they were there until they darted out of the grass. Story 61. Not me, but when I was a kid, my kittens were run over. I remember their little paws got stuck to the chain link fence. Story 62. A toad. He was fine, just pressed himself super low to the ground. He scared me when I looked down, but I think he got the bigger scare. He ended up living in that exact spot for years. Every time I would mow, I would pluck him out of his little hole and put him in a planter. The next week, he would be back there again. Story 63. This is even worse because it was not an accident, but I think it fits well enough. I will preface the story by saying a few months before I did this, my father intentionally ran over a dead skunk with his riding mower with the expected results. I gave him a lot of trouble for how dumb that was. I had a pool set up under a willow tree for my daughter, one of those 10-foot Intex ones. That, in and of itself, was a terrible decision on many levels. A squirrel managed to find its way into the pool and drowned. I tossed it a few feet away to an area where the grass does not grow well, so I only mow that area about every 3rd time I mow the lawn. A couple of weeks later, I was mowing that area and decided it was a good idea to run over the squirrel. My logic was that it had maybe dried out instead of rotting because it was a small animal, which was kind of stupid. Well, it was not dry and the smell was very strong. To make it worse, I did not realize that some of the chunks were now in range of my dog's zipline leash. I think the pool was in the way before, but I had drained that. So my dog got into it and now smelled terrible. I washed her several times but could not quite get all of the smell out, so now I had that smell inside my house for a couple of days. It was fairly faint but still noticeable. Story 64. My teenage son ran over a grounding rod with my brand new riding lawnmower a month ago, even after I pointed it out to him. No damage, luckily. I had to spray paint it orange so he could see it now. Years ago, my now ex-wife, while we were married, ran over a tree stump and bent the deck. That was a $400 repair. Story 65. Yesterday, I mowed over my vaporizer and phone charger. I was on a hill and they slid out of my pocket. I found them this morning, unharmed. Story 66. Living in the Pacific Northwest, there were frogs that hid in the grass. Literally every time I mowed, it was a frog massacre. Story 67. I did not hit it with the mower, but while pushing, I was not looking and my leg ran straight into a water faucet that was about a foot above the ground. It sliced my leg open, but I still finished the lawn. Story 68. Hey Metropolitan Network. I do not have Metropolitan Network and your fiber cable is strung through my backyard without an easement. Hey Metropolitan Network, it has been 3 weeks now and I have been moving your cable to mow. You need to remove this cable from my yard. Hey neighbor, yes, Verizon Internet is working. Your Metropolitan Network is not. Strange. I would call them. Hello neighbors 2 to 5. Very strange. I do not know, my Verizon Internet is fine. I would call them. Hey cable technician, my Doberman runs free in the fenced backyard. I would not open my gate or enter my property. Hey Metropolitan Network, your cable is in my backyard again. It has been 3 months and I think I accidentally mowed over it. Hey Metropolitan Network, it has been 6 months and I have accidentally mowed your cable 4 times. It is still lying across my backyard. Hey Metropolitan Network, it has been almost 1.5 years. The cable has been chewed by the dog, mowed over, and cut with shears several times. Would you like to retrieve your cable? Hey Metropolitan Network, on the 2nd anniversary of my complaint about your cable in my yard, you have finally buried it outside my yard. Thank you. Story 69. My dad always said to avoid rocks because they fire off like a bullet and can break a window. I never realized that it does not have to hit a window. Sometimes it can hit you in the shin and leave a scar for the rest of your life. Story 70. Softballs, tennis balls, golf balls, Play-Doh, footballs, bubbles, yo-yos, Legos, Batman. I have 3 boys here, so anything kids aged 4 to 14 would have, I've run over. Last fall, I went for a walk in the woods behind our house, and I found a very modern softball with mower blade marks on it, and it was very far. I couldn't even estimate how far it was, but it was an incredible distance. I know that one got hit with the tractor mower. No way the Cub Cadet did that. Story 71. I live on a farm and have worked on them for years. We normally bush hog the fields using a 6-foot wide tow-behind mower powered by the tractor. While it is running, the tractor does not stop moving forward quickly. With that said, I did not see a pair of fawns until they had passed under my back axle about a foot from the bush hog. I slammed the power takeoff and stood on the brakes and clutch, but it still looked like a Quentin Tarantino film had been shot within a 200-foot radius around me. It was the last pass I had to make to finish the field. Story 72. Giant anthill. I basically shot them at the side of the car like birdshot. They got all over the mower and up to me. I found out the hard way that they got into the car too. Story 73. A poor frog. My very first roadkill. I think I was about 12 at the time. I am still grieving that loss. Poor little Kermit hopping along, and I saw him too late. Then he came out the other side with his throat slit. Story 74. A rabbit. A small rabbit. I did not fully kill it, so I had to finish the job. I had nothing to do it with. Felt really bad. This was about 10 years ago, and it still comes to my mind occasionally. That is how bad it felt. Story 75. Once, a concrete brick broke into 3/4-sized chunks and shot through the side of my above-ground pool. It hit an exposed fiber optic conduit once. The cable was fine, but the conduit was damaged. Story 76. We had just got Starlink and I left it in the yard to get it up and running before we mounted it. A couple of days later, my dad ran over the cable with the mower. I work in information technology, so I was planning on just splicing it because it was a standard Ethernet cable on the inside. However, I came home and he was taping the wires together. It ended up working until we got a replacement cable. Story 77. As a kid, I mowed over a rabbit's nest while doing my parents' lawn. I didn't realize it until I made the next pass. It made me cry and stop mowing. I also had a lot of anxiety mowing my own lawn until I decided to hire a service to handle it. Story 78. A coin, most likely from laundry that was hung out. The mower was fine. The coin, not so much. Managed to almost split it in half. Story 79. Blue-tongued lizard still feels bad. Small bearded dragon also still feels bad. Pumpkins do not feel bad. Kids' toys often do not matter. Garden hose is horrible to untangle. Sleeper spike is dangerous and damaging. Water is fun. I asked my kids and one said, grass. Our mouse and nest. Story 80. I ran over baby rabbits that were hiding in my grass. Pains me. It haunts me. I will never be the same. Please start the lawn mower for a few minutes before you begin mowing. It will scare away the animals and save your sanity. I tried to save them, but it was too late. Story 81. The internet cable to our house. I was so focused on getting the perfect lawn stripes that I did not notice I was getting closer to the wall. 3 days without wireless fidelity really taught me to pay attention. Story 82. Besides the basic dog or child toy hidden in the yard, there was a yellow jacket nest. I decided that was enough mowing for the day. Story 83. I ran over my brother's bong that he left outside. Mom got really upset at me. I said, "Why was there a glass bottle by the shed?" She replied, "What glass bottle?" So I went to show her what I had done. Her anger shifted from me to my brother because he had been smoking cannabis in the shed and thought it was clever to hide it in the weeds. Brother, don't hide your cannabis gear in the weeds. The weeds get mowed down 3 times per year. Don't stash your bong there. Okay? That was 23 years ago. Still a hilarious story to bring up at Thanksgiving. Story 84. A dead mouse. Yes, it was already dead. No, I did not find it again. Our car had caught it and my wife warned me about it. I forgot. Story 85. A pedestrian was in a motorized cart. I was going left from an elevated drive. She was in the center turning lane in the middle of a 4-lane highway. I never saw the woman. I thought I was having engine problems and kept pressing the throttle. I rolled down the window, looked out next to my truck, and saw the cart tumbling over underneath the frame. I lost control and thought I had killed somebody. Thank goodness she survived. Story 86. A trailer hitch. I tried mowing neighbors' lawns for extra cash, and on the third house they told me to mow a strip but did not mention the hitch sticking out of the ground. As a result, I damaged my mower and left the job half done. Story 87. A cast iron antique sprinkler that destroyed the plastic deck of my Honda lawnmower, and a large copperhead snake that came out unscathed, was on the highest setting and very angry. Story 88. Not me, but my oldest daughter found my missing crowbar while mowing. I had forgotten it outside, and the second I heard the bang, I knew what it was. All went well. She was a bit startled, and I only had to sharpen the blade again. After this, she refused to mow the lawn. Story 89. Not me. I work in veterinary care. Your chance to stop reading this comment. We had a particularly difficult Friday. The last 4 hours of my shift included 2 euthanasias scheduled, but we also had a dead on arrival show up. An appointment turned into a euthanasia and an emergency case of a dog bleeding profusely. The owner brought in their very senior Yorkshire Terrier. He was very much deaf and mostly blind. You can see where this is going. The owner thought the dog was inside when he started mowing. He had shredded this dog's limbs. There was no saving him. The owner understandably felt horrible and very guilty. We were all so traumatized from that appointment and felt so bad for the owner because how do you come back from that? I hugged my dogs when I got home, but not before crying my eyes out. Story 90. Similar story, but not a mower. I was chopping ice in front of the house with our new custom weld shop ice pick. The tool weighed 20 pounds for chopping thick ice. I was working hard when my phone slipped out of my pocket, and before I could stop, wham! A hole went through the phone, completely and utterly destroyed. There was no saving anything from that one. Story 91. Not me, but I knew a guy when I was in my late teens, probably around 19 or so. I am 40 now for reference. He was a commercial farmer in Sweetwater, Texas. He had one of those large mowers and came home upset one day because he had run over a baby deer. I thought it was funny that he had accidentally injured the deer, but he was not amused. I should have known then that I was autistic. Story 92. It is not an accident and actually quite horrible. In high school, a student who had graduated a year before when I was a freshman was very evil and vile. He would run over cats with his family's mower. Story 93. Not a mower accident, nor was it me. My wife took the electric hedge trimmers because, why should it be a man's job? 30 seconds later, she had cut the cord. Well, accidents happen. So I rewired the trimmers and gave them back to her. They lasted about 2 minutes before it happened again. Story 94. My garage door. The parking brake had been sticking for a while, but only in top gear. Rain started coming down, and I just wanted to get back to the garage quickly. I forgot it was in high gear. I was bent over backwards and halfway into the garage when I remembered the key. Then, in my frustration and trying to get it unbent enough to close for the night, I had the idea to remove the bracket that connects the spring cable to the door. I split my forehead in two but somehow did not injure my nose or eye. I am an idiot. Story 95. Mama Bunny and her 3 kids. Instantly made it 1.5 kids. Had to take a shovel to the half to put it out of its misery. It was sad. Story 96. Just a big rock. I broke the blade and got it fixed. Next time, I pulled the cord too hard and broke the starter. I got it fixed. Now I cannot start it and do not know why. Story 97. A village of tiny people. It seemed they were highly advanced from what I could tell in the aftermath. Story 98. Something with a blue flower. Some sort of bush. My wife repeatedly got angry at me. It doesn't exist anymore. She constantly points out healthy examples as we travel around and makes comments like, "That's what it should look like." I was told the name of it but refused to remember it. Oh, the shame. Story 99. Baby bunnies. Just walking, minding my business, then the mower stops. I see small bunnies scatter and then I look underneath. Yeah. Story 100. Baby bunny nest. I was only 14 and it was well hidden. I felt horrible. A few mutilated ones kept moving even after I realized it. It took me a few minutes to process the reality, and the best thing to do was to go back and end their suffering completely. It is one of my earliest memories of having to make a hard adult decision. Story 101. I haven't mowed anything in my life, but I went to school with a girl whose brother ran her over with a lawnmower when she was little. Her entire body was covered in thick scars. She did not like me. I do not know why. Story 102. My dad values speed over care. When he visits, he has mowed over my honeyberry bush and some of my solar lighting. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.